This is just a quick video to explain some of the features of the Max MSP patch that was used for the Tonewheel 2.0 audio experience design installation. Firstly, actually, this is the iPad interface that was made in TouchOS C, what it does is mostly sends numerical values via OSC or Open Sound Control messages, and those are sent by Wi-Fi to our Max patch. So this runs on an iPad, and then let's now hop over to Max and have a look at what's there. So we have presentation mode in Max, which is used for the display function of the patch and tidies things up a bit. The two main things we're doing here is displaying the frequency spectrum in a graph on the left and then the waveform on the right. We do also have a few simple controls from this presentation mode as well, including just sending the IP address of the iPad over in case it changes its IP address, or if you're using another iPad, and then just the ability to reset the levels of the artificial harmonics and some of the panning that you can do for any of the harmonics, be they from the tone wheels or be they generated by the patch. So if we now go out of presentation mode, the patch is a lot messier. I'm just going to take you through each section. So it begins here where we get from the Focusrite Scarlett 18i interface, we use 4 inputs that are mapped such that we can just use 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and that's from each individual pickup. And actually the first thing that happens after these is they're sent through 2 filters. That's why we use Cascade in this case. There's a high shelf filter to get rid of some high frequency noise, and a notch filter that's trying to eliminate some other background noise that was specifically around this frequency. After that, each harmonic goes into the ability to be panned and have its volume adjusted. So we have panning for each, and everything is initially set to be at an initial value, so the panning is all in the middle. You'll notice that off of this particular harmonic we have some extra chords which are routed over here to some gizmo modules. These are where the artificial harmonics are generated, and what they do is specify with these numbers here, either 2, 3, 4 or 5, they specify the multiples above the input frequency that is going to be played by each of these modules. So here we're coming off the what looks like the 3rd harmonic, but this is actually the highest one on the build. It's just that the tone wheels aren't in order of pitch. But this is indeed the highest frequency coming from the tone wheels, and now we have double that frequency 3 times, 4 times, and 5. And 5, I think, 2 and 3 are both octaves, I believe, and 4 is a 5th above this octave, and 5 is a 3rd above this octave. So it's not necessarily octaves the whole way up. We have a 5th and a 3rd in there as well. Then all of these values can be controlled by the interface. So this is where we start to receive some information. We're doing UDP receive on port 8000. And this is getting information from the various sliders and the various rotary encoders, which do both the volume, level, and stereo panning respectively. But because you can also update some of these from the computer in presentation mode, we need to send all of the values back to the interface so that it also updates in real time. So if you input a bunch of panning on the iPad and then click reset on the computer, when it resets, all of the rotary knobs are going to go back to the home position on the iPad as well. So that's why we have this UDP send here. Then the sound goes through a number of different effects modules, which are all based off of either the Max MSP tutorials or in some cases just pre-existing objects in Max. So the order of the effects is distortion, followed by chorus, followed by reverb. And in order to decide whether you want one to be on or not, and in order to have any combination possible, I'm actually using a gate, and the first output of the gate always goes to an effect, and the second output always bypasses it. And that's just controlled from the interface by a toggle. And so when the toggle is not turned on, not sort of clicked and filled in, then it sends value 1 by default. Sorry, it's the other way around. It sends value 2 by default, which means that the sound isn't being sent through the effect in max, and if it's clicked and turned on, then it goes from sending a 2 to sending a 1, and so suddenly now this gate opens and that particular effect is turned on. The distortion really is no different from the Max MSP tutorial for distortion. The only very small change I've made is keeping the stereo levels the same. So you can control the sliders for the left side and they'll input their value directly to the right. So the distortion actually isn't stereo. The chorus is stereo though, and this is again just based off of the chorus module in Max, although the chorus tutorial in Max, although one thing that has changed is that the chorus tutorial uses random noise to modulate the frequency, and here we're using a cycle object, which gets us closer to the more traditional chorus sound that you would see in pedals from the 80s, like the Boss CE2, or indeed actually the way the Leslie speaker would work would be more closer to a sinusoidal modulation of pitch. So it seemed to just make more sense to put in a cycle rather than random noise in order to control the modulation. And then lastly, the final effect we have is reverb, and here we can control the reverb time with a slider, and again that's being controlled from the iPad. I probably should have mentioned actually the chorus rate and depth are also being controlled by 2 rotary encoders, so there's also receiving the values of those here. But then over in the reverb again, so it's similar, we have a slider for the reverb time, and we're just using the Max Cverb object, which is just one of their default reverbs and sufficient here. Then the final thing is everything goes out to a final volume level meter, which is our master volume, and we can toggle the audio engine to start and stop from here as well, and that outputs into some recording features. So here we're using SF record, and again this is controlled by the interface where we send certain values, and by using select here, when that particular value is detected, it will do, in this case, open wave. So that's for setting the name, as is suggested here by the name of this particular route. And so this opens it, the user types in the name, and then they have to click start record and stop record, which will begin and end the recording process. Coming out of this master volume level, we also then go into our graphs. So here we just have the frequency spectrum plotted, and the only thing that I'm controlling here that I've changed is just the colors. And similarly with the waveform, I've changed the colors and additionally just tweaked some of the parameters, like the number of samples for each value in the display buffer, and just some scaling so that it makes sense. You can also control here between some preset scaling options, just in case whatever sound you're generating is especially quiet or especially loud, and therefore either is too small or too big for the graph. And that is pretty much everything there is to see in the Max MSP patch. So thanks for watching.